Hello, and welcome to the Inner Bully Beatdown podcast. I am your host, Brittany Fowler. I am also the author of the book, Inner Bully Beatdown. I am also a breakthrough mentor and motivational speaker. So if you would like me to come speak to you, please visit my website at brittanyfowler.com. Enjoy this podcast. Ladies, how many of you know who I am? All the old women. That's true. I do teach 15, 16-year-olds Sunday school, so I know a few familiar faces, but I just want you to reach out to your right and tap the person on the back and say, I'm glad you're here. And on the left, say, I'm glad you're here.
I told the air that I'm glad they're here. So.
You know, we are grateful for the air that's here.
This is right.
All right. So, I'm going to start out tonight with one embarrassing story. How many want to hear an embarrassing story? Cool. So, let me move this because I get a little animated when I talk. When I was in college, I had my most awkward dating experience.
I love
it. How many of you in here go on dates? Or have been on a date? Sweet. Okay. So, as you get older, really embarrassing dating stories, and I want to hear them because I'm sharing mine, so you get to share yours. So, I was in the singles ward. I was 20-ish years old. And I was looking for a man, right?
Me too.
But, okay, come on. I was looking for a man, and so I wasn't being very particular of who I was dating. And I met this guy. He was in my ward, and he was balding. But we had conversations, so I was like, okay, I can look past the balding and go on a date. I know, it's kind of superficial, but not really, right? So I was giving it a chance. So he asks me out, and I'm all, sure, yeah, that'd be great. So we end up going bowling. I like bowling. Who likes bowling? Okay. I like bowling because I'm really good at it. And I like to win. But I quickly realized that bowling on a first date that's not a group date, there was a big problem with that. And that is that we kept walking past each other. It was like, good job, right? And then you like bowl, and then you like realize he's staring at your butt. And then like, you're just like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. Because you keep walking back and forth, and there's no conversation, there's no nothing. It's just awkward. It's just, oh, right? And so I start like, by frame 8, I just am like, trying not to bend over. So I'm like bowling like this. Right? And like just being like super awkward. I'm like, there's no chemistry here. This is not good. So I'm thinking as we're done bowling, I'm like, okay, how can I get out of this date? We had only been on the date for like 30 minutes. It does not take long to bowl 10 frames with 2 people. And so I remembered that my roommates were having game night. And so I was like, yes, group, people, somebody, let's get going because I don't want to be alone with you anymore. So we get in the car, and he's really nice. He opens the door for me. I sit down, and he's like, hey, you want to go get ice cream? And I'm on a sports diet. Can't have any sugar. He's all, oh, okay. He's like, do you want to go to a movie? And I'm all, you are not putting the moves on me at a movie. I'm not going to a movie. I was like, no, thanks. How about we just go back to my apartment for game night? And we can be, my roommates are having game night. He's like, okay. And he thought like that was the end of the awkward date, but it's not. So we're driving, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and he's driving, and we're talking about the weather, but it's night, so there's just nothing happening, right, on this date. And it gets really quiet, and he asks me, hey, can I ask you a question? Sure. And he's all, so you're really pretty and really easy to talk to, and I'm all, so, will you be my girlfriend?
First date.
Yeah. And I'm all, what do I say? What do I say, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, So I say, you know what, thank you. It's so flattering that you like those things about me, but I just don't feel that way about you, right? Wah, wah, like, shut him down. And I'm thinking that's the end of the day. He's taking me home. He parks. And I turn and I say, thank you for the bowling. I had a nice time. I get out. He gets out. And he's walking me in the door, and I'm thinking, what the heck? And then I was like, oh, he's just walking me in the door. He's being a gentleman, right? He's just being nice. Make sure you get to my door. So we get to the door. And I turn to him, thinking the date is over. And I say, hey, thanks for the bowling. I had a nice time. And I think I tapped him on the shoulder. Like, there was no going in for a second chance. So I turn and I go in. And he follows me in. And I'm like, does he not? No social cues, obviously. No social cues. And I go in, and there's nobody home. Nobody there. Game night didn't happen. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, let me go see where my roommates are. And I run back to the back of the apartment. I pull out my phone, and I call my roommate, and I say, where are you? I need girl intervention, like ASAP. I quickly told her the story. She's like, oh, I'm downstairs. I'll be right up. And she comes upstairs, and she had a friend come upstairs that happened to know my date. So they get chit-chatting, and I'm like, yes. So I'm like talking to my roommate, and I'm like, where is everybody? And they're like, oh, they went to the Institute dance. I'm like, that sounds like fun. So I grabbed her arm, and we left the boys in the apartment. Because I couldn't get rid of him. What else was I supposed to do? And I learned a lot from that date. One, you don't go bowling on a first date with somebody that you don't really know because there's no conversation. And B, when somebody has game night, make sure you have backup, right? So they can save you. But inner bullies, okay? I'm the author of the Inner Bully Beatdown. Inner bullies are exactly the same way. They stick around. They don't get the cue. Even if you tell them to leave and you're not interested, they like to stick around unless you give them an eviction notice, unless you physically remove yourself, right, from that situation. Bye-bye. You're awkward. I don't like you. You make me feel uncomfortable. I just want to leave, okay? So let's talk about what an inner bully is. So to kind of understand what an inner bully is, it's more than just negative thoughts. How many of you have negative thoughts about yourself? Yeah. We look in the mirror. We say some not nice things to ourselves. When we don't do well on a test, we say not so nice things to ourselves. You name it, we all have negative thoughts about ourselves. But inner bullies are more than just negative thoughts. They actually make you feel really crappy about yourself too. And then they love to revel in the fact that you're miserable. So they like to stick around, and they have this little control panel, right? So they have two buttons. One, to say that you're of no worth, you're no good, you're not special, nothing cool about you, right? And then they have this other button that says, feel terrible, feel guilty, feel shame, feel crappy, right? So they push these two buttons, because if you feel that way, then it must be true. Our emotions are super powerful. And actually, when you research emotions, your body actually has what they call emotional memory. So when you have a memory or a thought that comes into your brain that is negative, within 30 to 60 seconds, your body will actually feel the negative emotion that always goes with that thought. So what does it do? It keeps you in this, let's just call it a jacuzzi of misery. Right? Okay, a jacuzzi of misery, and we don't want to be there. We don't want to be there. Now, we always say in the church, right, think positive, or you're of divine worth, and you know that you're a daughter of God. And that helps. Knowing where you came from, why you're here, having the big perspective, it helps you understand, okay, I have some worth, right? Individual worth. That's why we teach that. But when you're here on earth, sometimes we like to forget. We like to forget who we are. We can't remember why we're special. And then Satan likes to just blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I don't even know what to believe anymore about myself, right? I don't even know. And these negative thoughts cause your confidence to do what? Drop. What happens when we have low self-confidence? What are some negative things when we have low self-confidence?
You're sadder.
Sad. What else? When we have low self-confidence, do we accomplish a lot? Do we try new things? No. So we're not really up for trying new things. What else? What do you guys think of?
You're insecure.
Insecure. Okay. Sometimes it's hard to speak, right? You get nervous, you have a physical reaction when you have low self-esteem. And that's your body going into like panic mode, right? Sometimes you have panic or anxiety. Okay. So is this a place where, oh, you have one more thing?
Yeah, I was going to say maybe angry.
Angry? Why would you be angry with low self-esteem?
Because maybe like you know that you shouldn't feel that way, but you do feel that way, so it might make you mad that you're thinking that way.
Yeah, because your brain says what in that instance? So did everybody hear what she said? Sometimes you feel angry when you have low self-esteem because you're like, well, I know I shouldn't be feeling this way. Because, right, like, I am a daughter of God, like, I have, like, a great family or whatever. Like, you have all these positives, but you can't, like, pull yourself out of this mud pit, right? So I can definitely relate to that. So thank you for your comment. So here's the thing about low self-confidence, is that it creates doubt. What do we know about doubt? Whose tool is doubt? Satan's tool, right? And he loves that tool. It's super easy for him to just go, you're really great, but there's this one thing. There's this one thing that doesn't really add up, right? So this doubt is actually, what if I were to pose a question to you? Is doubt a habit, or is doubt just a one-time feeling? What do you think?
Like it stays in your mind.
Okay, so it stays in your mind. We know that it's a super powerful tool. But what if I told you that doubt is a mental habit? Would you believe me? Maybe? Do you know those people who are all, like, you have people in your life, some people are confident, some people are not very sure of themselves, or really insecure. But it seems like those people that are really insecure never really do anything because they're always insecure, right? Like they're always kind of in this pattern of doubt. I doubt myself. I doubt my abilities. Hey, come on in. There's a seat right there. Excuse me. So Craig Manning is a sports psychologist. He doesn't have very many videos online, but he does have one. He trains Olympic athletes, and he is like the creator of what's called the Fearless Mind, like online guru guy. But he gave a BYU devotional a few years ago, and if you go and listen to it, he talks about how he trained an Olympic athlete who wasn't supposed to go to the Olympics. It was like 6 months before the Olympics, and the skiers coach came to Craig, the sports psychologist, and he said, look, I have this athlete. She has all the talent in the world. She does like downhill, like mogul things or whatever. But will you help her be ready for the next Olympics? So 4.5 years away. And he's all, well, we can start her on this, my program and what we do now and see how she does, because she could qualify for the Olympics in like 2.5 months. And the coach was like, that's never going to happen. Like, you don't know my athlete. She has all the talent in the world, but she has a problem with self-doubt. He's like, well, we'll see. So he goes on and he trains this athlete how doubt is a mental habit, right? And I love his quote. He says, doubt is a mental habit that doesn't stay in one area of your life. If you doubt something about yourself physically, guess what? You're probably going to doubt something about yourself spiritually or mentally, right? It permeates just your attitude, your overall attitude about new things. And so he taught this skier really how to, when you're feeling doubt, when you're feeling that instance of being scared, what do you do? Right? What is your opposite? What is that? How can we flip that idea in your mind that from this doubt to this confidence? Right? How do we do that? Because do you think that, well, let me finish the story and then I'll go into that question. So in this moment, it's like 5 minutes before she's supposed to qualify. Like she's going to go on her run to qualify. And she's like in 4th place. She has to beat her all-time like record going down the hill for her to be able to qualify to be on the Olympic team. And she is like 2 minutes away from like coming up to the starting line. And doubt starts to creep in. Right? This old habit of doubt. The good old inner bully that just loves to make her feel inferior. And so she goes out and she says, just a second. Like she tells her like people and she takes off her skis and she has her power statement, which is, today is my day. Today is my day. And she opens her hands up like this and she shouts it to the mountaintop. Today is my day. Right? It's not anybody else's, it's mine. And she gets back in her skis the best run of her life and ends up qualifying for the Olympics and ends up getting a silver medal in the next Olympics. When her coach had believed that her doubt, she would never overcome it. Right? That was the only thing holding her back. And what's interesting about God is that he has no doubt. He doesn't use doubt as a tool. He knows exactly who you are and who you can become. And he wants you to get over the doubt, get over the low self-confidence, and become the woman that he wants you to be. So what does that mean? Who does God become if he's in our cheering section? What do we call that? If you have somebody in your cheering section, what do you call that? A support. Who said something else? Yeah. Advocate. I heard one more in the back.
We both said cheerleader.
Cheerleader. Woo-hoo. Do sometimes we forget that God is these things for us? Sometimes we feel like God is the opposite. Like, why are you giving me this trial? Like, I don't really like it, right? Like, I don't really want to grow right now. I just want you in my corner. Well, guess what? Everything that he does is for your benefit. Everything that he does is to help you grow into the woman that you are meant to be. I like to call this co-creation. When I figured out when I was about 12 that I could have God in my corner and create the things that I wanted to do, it changed my whole outlook on setting goals, on having relationships and friendships that I wanted. I'm going to give you a few examples. So I'll tell 2 stories. One, when I was 12 years old, I swam. I swam during the summer, and I was pretty good. I always either had first place ribbons or a few second place ribbons. And my best friend, Stephanie, who lived around the corner from me, she always had the red ribbons. So, but sometimes she got the blue and I got the red, right? So we are always on this pedestal together. But my parents had told us ever since we were little, if you win the county swim meet in your event, we'll give you $50. So county swim meet was at the end of the summer, and you work, all week long and all Saturdays. You're working up to this county swim meet. And when I was 12 years old, I thought, maybe I could use some extra money. And I decided that I was going to work harder that summer. But I also had the idea, well, maybe I'll involve God. Maybe I'll say a little prayer. Maybe I'll test this out, right? This whole idea that he's my supporter, he's my advocate, he's my cheerleader, and really see if that's legit, right? Because we all have these moments in our testimony when we say, okay, is this really true? or is this just a story, right, that everybody's telling me? So I say a prayer at the beginning of the summer, and I say, look, I really want to win county swim meet in at least one event. And I'm going to put in the extra work. But I need you to make up the difference, whatever that is. Because I won't know what that is. But I know that you will know and that you can take care of it. So after that prayer, felt really good. Great, let's go for it. So I would go to practice in the mornings. And then in the afternoons, I would go swim laps. Or I would go running in the afternoon to build the endurance. And so I would do this, and I read books on how to improve my technique. And so I was doing the work, right? I was doing the work. And it was actually the week of girls' camp when county swim meet was, and so I missed one of the days that evening. But I remember driving. I wasn't driving, I was 12, but I remember being driven to the swimming pool, which was actually ironic. It's Spanish Fork swimming pools where county swim meet was that year. And I remember being so nervous I was going to puke. I was just like, oh my gosh, it's finally here, right? When you do all this work and you're like, oh my gosh, it's finally here. And so I get in the first event was team event, right, the team relay. But the $50 didn't apply because it was a team event, even though we won. And I was like, okay, good start. My next events were the 50-meter butterfly, the 50-meter backstroke, and the 100-meter IM. Those were my best events. Now, the butterfly, I was ranked second in the county. So I was like, I got this in the bag. I could do this, right? I just had to improve my time by 2 seconds or something. I don't even remember what it was. And then backstroke, I was ranked 4th. And I was like, yeah, that's a little bit of a stretch. And the IM, which is the individual, it's 100 meters, right? Butterfly, backstroke, breaststroke, freestyle. I was ranked 7th, so I barely made the last heat. And I was like, oh, that's a stretch. I don't think I'm going to do that. So I get in, I get up on the block, and the whistle blows for the butterfly. And I go and I dive in, and I get to the end of the pool, and I'm like, oh, I'm in the lead. So I turn back, and I'm swimming as hard as I possibly can, and I end up winning. Super cool. Then there's not that much break between the butterfly and the backstroke. So the backstroke event comes up, and I get in the water, right? And I had practiced my starts, I had practiced my flip turns, I had practiced everything. I was ready to go. But I knew that I was 4th. And to make up that many seconds in one swim meet is this is pretty tough, right? Because everybody's going to be swimming their hardest. And I ended up winning that heat as well. But I was dead. I had no energy left. I had swam 3 events in 30 minutes. I was tired. I was done. And I could barely get out of the pool. And right then, as we go back to the blanket, it was only 15 minutes until I was supposed to get in the IM, in the bullpen for the IM. And all of a sudden, there comes this thundercloud over the mountains, kind of just south. Where are we? South, right? And it strikes lightning once. And so what did the pool people do? They paused the meet for a half hour. The clouds go back over the mountains. And I end up getting enough rest to where I jump in the water and I end up winning the next event. And then we won the relay. So that whole event, the whole county swim meet, I ended up winning everything I swam, and I only asked for one. And every time I co-create with God, every time I ask Him to help me with a goal, every time I've ever asked Him, and I say, look, I'll do the work. You just make up what I can't or won't be able to control. I couldn't control the weather, right? I couldn't control that, but He did. I know He did. Every time I tell that story, I get goosebumps, and I just know that break was for me because I had worked hard for it. When I had this crazy idea when I was in college that I was going to do triathlons during the summer because I was in college and I was playing softball, so I was already working out a bunch anyway. So I was like, yeah, I'll just do triathlons. I don't know. And I decided that I was going to do an Olympic distance triathlon, which is you swim a mile, you bike 23, 24 depends on the race. And then you run 6.2, right? And so, it's okay, your jaw can drop, it's okay, mine did too. So I say a prayer and I say, look, Heavenly Father, I want to try this. I want to do my best. And I got a book online of what the training should be every day, and I did it. And I was working like 2 jobs, and then I had training in the afternoons, and I was putting in the work. And race day comes, again, super nervous. Like, you do all this work, and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm like, well, you might as well try, right? Might as well try. And the swim goes okay. My wetsuit was too big and totally filled with water, so I almost drowned, but that's all right. And then, I'll know next time, right? And then the bike went really well, and then the run came. The run came. Okay. So, it's all right. When you get up here, your brain goes really crazy. So, the run came, and you get past these mile markers. At every mile, there's like a water station, right? So I know I just passed mile 3, and so to go back, right, the last 3 miles, you turn around and go back. Well, I'm coming up to the turn, and I take one step, and my right foot just goes numb and shoots up pain into my lower back. And I'm like, oh, that's not feeling very good. And so I take another, I jog a couple more steps. I'm like, oh, something's wrong. Something's pinched. Something's not okay. And I've had lots of injuries. I mean, I blew out my knee. I tore my rotator cuff. I have this beautiful shattered fingertip from softball. Like, I understand when you're injured versus when you're hurting. Like, I can push through a hurt, but this was an injury of some sort. And I had worked so hard, 2 to 3 hours a day. I had just done the swim. I had done the bike. I had, I was in it. And I said a prayer, and I said, Heavenly Father, I've come this far, and it hurts really bad. It hurts really bad. And I'd like to finish what we started. I'd like to finish this race. And I closed the prayer, and 3 steps later, the pain was gone. And I ended up finishing the race in first place. I ended up passing about 3 other women who didn't have the gas to make it, that were ahead of me. And I ended up crossing the finish line and dropping to my knees. And I just bawled my eyes out, because I knew that there was no way possible other than an angel touching me, right? Touching me to heal me in that moment, that I could have finished that race. There's no way. And so I know that God is mindful of me. From my experiences, these are my, what you call, anchoring testimony moments, right? They're the ones that pull you through when you feel like you have no self-confidence, when you have nobody on your team, when you feel like your parents don't understand you, or you just feel totally alone. Because there will come a time in your life, if you haven't felt it already, that you will feel alone. But there's one person that knows you. He knows you. He knows everything about you. He knows your weaknesses. He knows your strengths. He knows your potential. He knows who you can become. And this idea of co-creation, it's not you doing a tug-of-war against God. Look, God, I want this. And he says, no, you can't have that. And you say, no, really, I want this. Will you come help me? So what does God do? He comes around to your side of the tug-of-war. And you both pull together, and you have this co-creation, you have this support, you had this advocate on your team that's stronger than anybody you could ever have enlisted to be on your team. And the same thing happens, not only for goals that you want, but the same thing happens when you need emotional support. As women, I grew up in a family of 5 girls, so I get you.
Oh my gosh.
No brothers. My dad was a rock star. The only other boy we had in our family was our basset hound, and he was awesome. But I get the emotions that we have as women. I get that they're super strong. I get that sometimes they're uncontrollable, and that sometimes we don't know what to do except for react. What's the difference between react? I can't stop. Hold on. What's the difference between reacting and then taking like consistent action? When we react, there's not much thought there. Can I tell you a little secret? When you are emotional, your brain, your logical brain shuts off. That's how it goes. When I got my degree in communications, and there's this whole theory, and they just study the heck out of it, right? That when your emotions are in full swing, your logical brain shuts down. It doesn't even process. And what does our logical brain do? It keeps us sane and logical. But when we're in this emotional state, it's like who's making the choices? It's a reaction instead of an action. So this action part of it is saying, okay, what's going on, and how can I get the action or the reaction that I actually want? This is part of growing up. This is part of, right, maturing, as they say, emotional maturity. But can I tell you that when you have these emotions that seem overwhelming, because they'll come, what can we do? What can we do when our emotions get the best of us? We think about the reaction. We think about the outcome. We think about the outcome that we want. And then you make a decision according to that outcome. So, God will never leave you alone. He never leaves you alone. Do you believe that? Sometimes you may feel alone. But what can we do to bring ourselves closer to knowing this truth that He is our co-creator, that we are in this together? What are some things you can do? Know that God is on our side. Any ideas? What? Speak up.
I can say you can pray and build a testimony.
Okay, pray and build a testimony. Pray and build a testimony on our side. Can we? Oh, yes.
Yeah, a lot of times when we're in that emotional muck, we forget, we think of only the now and how much it hurts, and we don't remember how good it was. So just think back on times that God has blessed your life.
That's right. Okay, remember your blessings. I saw another hand. What else was there? Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say you can do more because you have that kind of that guide with you, and you kind of have that person that's always by you.
Okay. I want to bring up this idea. Do we have to do more to be more? When I was 13, how many of you are 13 in this room? Cool. When I was 13, so I grew up with four sisters, right? So there were 5 girls. When I was 13, my oldest sister got married. I thought it was great. And it ended up being not such a great choice for her. He ended up taking her away, super far away, and haven't seen her in 19 years. And during the first 5 years of that period, where we didn't really understand what was going on, we didn't understand abuse or anything like that, I just felt abandoned by my sister because we were best of friends. We were like buddy, even though she was 9 years older than me. We had this gap where she was the oldest and I was the youngest, and then there was my 3 sisters that were born 3 years in a row. So they were like buddy. So we buddied up, right, in our family. And I felt super alone, super abandoned. And I thought, I had this idea that, oh man, if I'm in the school play, maybe she'll come watch me. If I play more games in softball, maybe she'll come watch me. If I'm in this pageant, maybe she'll come watch me, right? If I do more, maybe I can be more for her. And I got into this habit where I was running faster than I had strength. I was doing more than I ever possibly was before, just in hopes that I wouldn't feel abandoned anymore. And I realized that I had this inner bully, that this belief that you have to do everything to make people like you. So what did I do? I joined the cheerleading squad as well, so that I could have more people like me, because if I did more, I could have more friends, right? And then the next year, instead of being a cheerleader, I played tackle football, because that was a natural choice. No, it was just because when I was a cheerleader, I had to turn around and cheer when they were like 3 yards from the end zone, and I really hated that because I like to watch the football game. So in 9th grade, I told my dad, hey, I want to play tackle football. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, it'll be fine. Like, I'm just as big as the other boys, which I was. Like, there were some that were bigger, a lot that were smaller. So size really didn't really matter at that point. And I was like, this is the last year I could possibly play, and I really want to play. He's like, okay, if that's what you want to do. So I went through that, which is a story for another time. But can I tell you, well, I'll tell you one thing I learned from playing football, was that I expected it to be physically hard, right? It's football. Let's be real. You're like tackling and running and sweating and all that, and you're just putting on those stinky jerseys. They never wash them. But one thing I learned from playing tackle football is how strong I really was emotionally. Because every day I had to pray, Heavenly Father, help me get through this practice. Because I was alone. Nobody wanted me on that field. None of my friends. I lost a lot of my friends. I lost a lot of support from people who I thought liked me as a person, because I was intruding on their space, right? And I found out from that experience of playing tackle football of what it was really like to feel alone and have Christ really next to me, getting me through that endeavor. I learned a lot from that, but again, that's a whole other fireside thing. But through this time when I was trying to be more, I was trying to fill it with worldly things. I was trying to fill it with activities that would make me seem better than not better than other people, just better, so that I would be this light on a hill, and so she would come running back to me, right? Like there was this drive and this desire to fill my self-worth with worldly activities. They were good activities, they weren't bad activities, but I was missing the point. To be more, you don't have to do more. You are just as valuable with your hobbies as you are without your hobbies. You are just as valuable with the clothes that you wear or the clothes that you don't wear, the house that you live in or the house that you don't live in. You have the same value, no matter what.
The lawn you don't have.
Yeah, the lawn you have or the lawn you don't have. It's the same word, right? What do we call that? What do we call that in our values? Individual worth, right? You have that within you. God knows you have that. I know you have that. Your leaders know that you have that. And everything that we do is to help you find that. Because we don't expect you to do more. We love you the way that you are. We love the comments that you make. We love the way that you show up in life. We love that you're excited about cool things and that you're just growing up. We love that about you. And God loves that too. I'll bear my testimony that no matter what kind of person you choose to be, God is always there rooting you on. He will be there for you. And all you have to ask is for him to be on your side of the rope. And he will do that for you, because he's done that for me so many times. And if he'll do it for me, he'll do it for you. I know that God loves you. I know that your leaders love you. I know that this gospel teaches principles that help us be happy. And if you only come to church just to feel a little bit of happiness, then keep coming back, because you're in it to win it, baby. Right? It only gets better. It only goes up from here. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
You can clap. From the bottom of my heart to yours, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you can't get enough or need more support with terminating your inner bullies, please join us on Facebook at Inner Bully Beatdown Podcast. We hope to see you there. Have a great day.